So let's move over now to Graeme from AccorHotels, which again is one of those big, well-known brands around the world.
Okay, so just in case you're not familiar with AccorHotels, it's Sofitel, Novotel, across the road, Mercure, Ibis, and a whole variety of other Pullman, and more recently Raffles and Fairmont and Swiss Hotels. So we're about just over 4,000 hotels globally, about 700 hotels in this region. So from a point of view of I want to get to a case study, but to give you a bit of background to this, Accor's been involved in the CSR as a company globally since about 1994. We formalised that probably in 2012, and we have a global program called Planet 21, and it's on there's 21 basic initiatives that we actually carry out across environmental and social and community areas as well. And there's these 7 pillars. We have some targets to reach that we aspire to across the world. So if you think about with the fact we've got 700 hotels in the Asia Pacific area and growing quite rapidly at a spate of about 60 to 70 more hotels a year. We're a very intense user of labour. In fact, about 70,000 people, I think, and we climb at about a rate of about 8,000 to 9,000 people a year as we're opening more hotels. So 3 initiatives, a couple of very short ones. We have a lot of education and what we call insertion programs. That's where we take people who are underprivileged or children who are underprivileged. We help them with their education, and then we can get them into the workforce because we're a very large employer. And so 2 examples of that would be one in India and New Delhi and Chennai. With the Hope Foundation, there's a partnership, and it's the Accor Centre for Hope. And basically, what we've done is we've taken kids that have been street kids, and we've brought them we've educated them in the service industry, everything from basic hospitality and retail, computing, English. And we make them available to be hired by a growing service industry in India. We obviously employ a large number ourselves, but they don't have to be employed by us. It's not compulsory. So that then gets them off the street, gets them earning, and breaks that poverty cycle. The centre originally was set up by Solidarity Accor. Now, Solidarity Accor is our global Accor philanthropic trust, and we've got quite a few millions in that trust. And what we can do, if an employee comes up with an idea that fits within the bounds of what the scope of the trust, then seed funding is given by the trust and we have projects, South America, Russia, a lot in Asia. So we've got lots of projects around the world. So for example, the seed funding will be provided to build the centre, but not to operate it, just to build it and structure it in the first place. Another example, a bit closer to Thailand, is in Mae Sot in Thailand. And in Mae Sot, we've got a hospitality and catering training centre. Same sort of idea. This is a partnership with 2 NGOs, a French NGO and an NGO based in the Thai Karen area. And in this case, we built classrooms, dormitories, classrooms, a restaurant, a kitchen, 4 commercially usable bedrooms. And the same thing again, we take youth who've got not much opportunity other than being involved in local industry, and we teach them another set of hospitality skills, and they then can find either employment within AccorHotels, and we've got close to 100 in this area, or alternative, they can go and work with another company. It doesn't really mind long, but we get them financial independence. But what I want to talk about in particular is actually a program that runs in Indonesia and was thought about in 2001, and it's called A Tree for a Child. I'll come on to why it's called that a bit later. But what we've basically done is that at that stage, we realised that there was a huge amount of poverty in areas of Indonesia, and we thought, well, if we can do something with youth and get them off the streets and get them we can break that poverty cycle. So we set up this, and the idea was that it had an environmental focus as well. So we could actually be able to we could make some environmental impact as well as making impact in the community and with education. So what we did is we leased a place in Chippenham, and if those of you are anybody familiar with Jakarta, Chippenham is one of the very impoverished areas of Jakarta. The people would make their money by picking up rubbish off the streets or out of the drains or whatever, and selling plastic bags and recycling whatever they could find. That's the kind of subsistence living. And so we leased a house. We still have that house some 10 years later. We leased a house. We converted many of the rooms into classroom, a rest area for computing room, a clinic, and we furnished it out. We've got 30 hotels in the area, though we're always changing furniture, so it's pretty easy to have a few spare few spare beds when we're changing them around. So we actually equipped the whole place out of the hotels, and the idea was to then and this is education centres turned to sangha, which is it's like an educational centre. And 2006 we opened this first one, and a little bit about it. So once we got it set up, we then had to select a group of children to start, and these were at level grade 6, sorry, not level 6, grade 6. So you can get an idea of the age group we're bringing people, and we've got the local schools to help us select these children, because we wanted to get children who had a little bit more capability and capacity from an educational point of view, because they're the ones that'll help break the cycles. So we had to get a fair bit of commitment from the children, and the whole idea is that it's almost like giving afternoon support or after school care, if you like, but which is from an educational basis. So you go to school in the morning, in the afternoon you come to the centre, and when you're at the centre, there's several things that actually happen. It's a safe place to study and interact with other children and other people as well. So the educational focus, we run from grade 6 to grade 12. Okay? English courses are given by our employees from the hotels, both expatriate and Indonesian. We've got computer supply. We've got a computer room because we're always changing hardware in our hotels all the time. We've got tutorials set up for each child. We've got a full-time manager there and a social worker that look after it. We provide scholarships for school fees and books and uniforms and tuition. We've got a study club organised for when children are going to national examinations. We can assist them to get a bit further. Social activities and outings. Some of them would never in their life be out of Jakarta or out of the area, let alone being out of Jakarta, and then so exploring more of their own country. And when they're getting older, we provide sex education and HIV understanding for children, because it's a high risk area for HIV, high levels of HIV in that particular area as well. So we got a healthcare focus. So there's a clinic that's been set up. We pay for a doctor to be there for, I think it's 3 days a week. It's for the children, for the families, and also when there's time allows for the wider community as well. And the other interesting thing we've done is we provide a daily meal, because some of these kids will be on subsistence levels of food because their families can't afford to feed them. So we actually give them a meal. So so nutritionally they're okay. We give them nutritional supplements. So that way we can actually make sure they can get the best out of their education. The most amazing thing that we had to do was we have to provide something that's called sembako. Now, some of you may know what sembako is, but it's the 9 basic food groups. So you've got rice and oil and flour and sugar and salt and it's essential to sort of basic survival. And we had to give this to the families, because we found that when they got to be teenagers, all of a sudden the family said, "No, stop that education stuff. Get back on the street. Start picking up rubbish, and we want to get a bit of income from you." So we had to go to the families and say, "Hold on a second. We'll give you some food, but we want the children to go to school." So we had to actually kind of pay the parents to let the children continue to go to school and finish their education. Quite an interesting outcome when we came to that level. From a what happens at graduation? Well, we've got thousands of employees, and we've got 37 hotels, I think, in Jakarta. So it's fairly easy to sort of place them. But also, many of those graduates go and work in other industries as well. So that was the whole idea, was to provide them training in our hotels. Not just in hotels, because remembering we have engineering, we have finance, we have administration, we have lots of other areas as well. So we could actually we could prepare them for a life in other industries, and then also we provide graduate scholarships. And what I mean by this, we've got one of these children, not a child, an adult now, and she's studying to be a doctor. Another one's just about finished their degree and to be a social worker. going to work back in the community, another one becoming an engineer in the final year of study as well. So that gets them through there. So we're not only breaking cycles, we're providing a whole change in the community. So if you think about the first 100-odd children there, we're about 54% actually employed by Accor. In fact, one of them is one of the human resources managers in one of our hotels. So it's pretty amazing what some of them have actually done. 30% are employed by other companies, 14% are in continued education, and about 2% of them are back in the community with just continuing what they were doing before. So we also, at the same time, created revenue for many of the mothers of the children there by getting them to make what we call an echo pen, which is a sort of a pen that's made by rolling used newspaper around a biro insert, and then we put a skin on those and we sell it back to the hotels. And we make about 250,000 of those in a year, sell it back to the hotels in the area, and the hotels use it for their guests, and the mothers then get half the selling price of that. So it puts a bit more income back into the family. I suppose an important thing to talk about is funding. So as the name suggests, A Tree for a Child, we originally actually planted trees, and that came, you hang your towel up and we leave it hanging up and we don't have the laundry costs, so therefore we take that money. Yes, we actually do that. We take the money and we actually put it into trees and grow the trees. The problem is that our local partner, one of our local partners in Indonesia, decided to acquire the trees when we weren't looking, so half of them got stolen. So we invested but lost a lot of money, so we went out of trees. But where the real money actually comes from is actually trash in our hotels. So we recycle plastic, glass, tin, metal, wet waste, cooking oil, and all the other things you can think of that become spare in a hotel when you're operating, and that's worth a lot of money. And all that money from that then goes back in to actually supply the income to actually run the centre. And it takes us around about $25,000 to $30,000 US a year to run a centre. And that includes paying for the salaries, paying for the lease, and the basic things we provide. So it's a little bit of money goes a long way, and it's completely self-funded from within the hotels in that region. So we then have a trust, a separate trust, and the trust is Indonesian-based. Only Indonesians on the trust to run it, because it's not run by the company at all. So the Yayasan Peduli Tunas Bangsa is the trust. And that's Indonesians' governance board as a company, and from an expatriate point of view, we're literally there to advise. We don't determine what happens with the money. They determine what will happen with that from keeping the centre running as well. We decided that was quite successful. So in 2013, we bought about 2,000 square metres of land in Bedugul and up in the mountains and not too far away from Ubud, but on the other side of the volcano. And a very impoverished, poor community there, subsistence farming, vegetable growing, rice, etc. And we bought 2,000 square metres of land, and then we built a 660 square metre centre on top of it. And we literally, instead of leasing it this time, we owned it. It cost us about $400,000. We fundraised for that. We ran some pretty massive golf tournaments and all over the place in Bali, invited lots of people, lots of money to go and pay a lot to go in it. And we actually funded the whole $400,000 and to buy the land, build the centre, and do the inevitable thing and pay off all the authorities you had to actually get the place open, which is unfortunate, but you do. And so then we opened that. We started building that in January 2015, and we opened that in January 2016. And our patron for the Yayasan and for the Tree for a Child is Gede Adika, and he's the ex-Minister of Tourism for Indonesia, so and Balinese, Indonesian and Balinese, so a wonderful man to have aboard. So he's very enthusiastic about supporting us. We selected the children the same way. We've got 20 children just started about a month ago. We've employed a full-time educator come social worker. And then we've now got that up and running. And we're now looking forward to doing the similar thing. Well, we've got to raise funds again, doing a similar thing actually in Central Java. Now, one last thing about that is the fact you're probably going to say to me, well, where's the NGO? Well, there's not an NGO. It's actually funded. So why is there not an NGO? Well, the decision originally was the fact, no, we won't have an NGO because they'll need a 20% slice of what we've got, therefore we won't be able to put the money into it, so we won't have an NGO. So it's actually run entirely by a group of Indonesians and a governance board and a management board. So I suppose, and our hotels are right behind it, because the funding for that comes from the hotels in Bali as well. So the model has been able to repeat itself. I suppose I'll finish with a quote from the COO for our region, and he said recently, when we had the opening of the place in Bedugul, we believe we have a responsibility to give back to our communities that have supported us over the last 2 decades. And that's the reason why we do this, because we are in the communities. And we take a strong leadership position in developing the future of our children. And that's kind of where we're at, because we now see those generations of children coming through, and they're also part of our teams as well. Thanks.
Thank you, Graeme.